Hello and welcome to a special playoff final edition of the Who Fit Football podcast. Today, the Borough fan, as you can see by my lovely Middlesbrough shirt, I'm joined by Charlie Oxtoby, the Hull City fan, and Lewis, the Chelsea fan, who's here to give a kind of
Referee.
unbiased, neutral referee opinion, essentially.
Yeah.
So obviously for both me and Charlie, it's been quite the week. I'd say more so for Borough than for Hull. But obviously, a lot of impacts for Hull as well, based off this whole Spygate scenario, shall we say, which we'll obviously dive into. But we just wanted to hop on and give a bit of a brief preview for the playoff final, seeing as it does affect us so much. And it might be the final episode of the Who Fit podcast ever. Because as mentioned on Sunday's episode or whenever it went out, if we lose, I'm no longer hosting this podcast, or Charlie's no longer being here, one of the two. So yeah, Charlie, outside of playoff final coming up on Saturday, how's life? We only spoke a few days ago.
Um, yeah, I mean, not bad. Not really anything's changed apart from probably my nerves and stress because until yesterday there was no real actual confirmation about whether the game was going to happen at half three or half four. I've literally managed to get a train to London and back, thankfully, despite it costing quite a bit more money than I was hoping for. But yeah, nonetheless, just looking forward to Saturday. Yeah,
Yeah. So you are going then?
I am going. Yeah.
Okay. So Charlie will be our eyes and ears on the ground at Wembley because I won't be making it because quite simply I can't afford to. So I will be watching from Manchester, from home, either on or behind my sofa. And yeah, I'm terrified to be honest. Lewis, how are you feeling? You going to be about watching the game?
No, I'm working Saturday, or I would have loved to have seen kind of the roller coaster of emotions that you would have experienced. Because the last time when we was watching the second leg of the playoffs, obviously you did originally lose that. Um, yeah, that was quite not. I wouldn't say entertainment because it was harsh to see you go through that, mate. But yeah, no, sadly I'm working. It was at least nice to see, obviously, on a side note, that Chelsea managed to actually beat Tottenham for a change. Yeah, I
Well,
watched
no
the
more
end of
Premier
that
League
game when I
chat
came back from
for
work.
the rest of this episode now, because no more Premier League chat. It's all a playoff final, but I'm happy for you to beat Spurs, and possibly send them to the Championship, of course.
Yeah, there's
But
the link.
I think the main crucial thing that I want us to start with is did the punishment fit the crime for Southampton? Because obviously, as a Borough fan, I think them being expelled is the correct, decision. Not just because it benefits me. Like I've been on record on this podcast saying that just give Hull promotion, as much as I knew that wouldn't happen, because I believe, like I said on the previous episode, they're not going to pass up on the opportunity of having the televised Sky Bet playoff final. That's so much money for Sky. They're not passing up on that, really, are they? But I obviously think the punishment did fit the crime. Like they cheated and they got kicked out of the competition that they cheated to get into. Like I don't see how that doesn't make sense. I've seen a lot of things. I think it was Matt Letizia on Twitter, which obviously is a barometer of great news. Matt Letizia, great sensible reporting. Talking about basically saying that it's like someone getting arrested for shoplifting and given the death penalty. It's like no, it's like someone getting arrested for shoplifting and kicked out of Sainsbury's. Is how I've seen it put, which I think is fair. Charlie is the other person that is impacted. Do you think it was the fair punishment? Like I'm sure you would have wanted a straight bye to promotion, but do you think Southampton being kicked out is fair?
Yeah, I think it's definitely like I feel like justice has been served with that. I know they said that they spied on Oxford and Ipswich as well as Middlesbrough, but that can't be true. Surely not three games you spied on, despite having this really good form ever since Thunder Eckert's come in. There's something dodgy going on with that. So even though it kind of does sort of mess up the whole build up and just kind of situation in the playoff final in general, I think the decision, the result was right. I think I can understand from a Southampton's fans and I guess owners' point of view when they kind of relate to Leeds United when they kind of got caught with a Spygate and they were just fined 200 grand. But of course, the rules have changed, they've been more strict. And yeah, I think. yeah, once again, there has to be this case where even though Southampton said they've only spied on three teams altogether, it's very hard to believe with how they've managed to have this incredible redeeming form ever since Will Still has been sacked, and Tonda Eckert has just been this magical miracle man who has almost gained Southampton to automatic promotion. I think that's how crucial the Spygate scandal has been in terms of the fact that the justice has to be served. I think really for Middlesbrough fans, they will be chuffed, of course, that they're in the playoff final. It's just that matter of fact that it's come at such a short period of time. We sort of wish it was going to happen earlier on, but yeah, I'm glad it's gone the correct result or correct decision for Middlesbrough and Southampton.
I mean, I think the funniest thing is the fact that the three games they've admitted to spying on, they didn't win any of them. That is quite funny.
Yeah, that's true.
Objectively, that's hilarious. I mean, they lost 23rd place Oxford when they spied on them. So, like, someone get him some better binoculars, old Billy Salt. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the kind of Spygate saga is now resolved for now. You'd imagine, whatever way, you know, this goes on Saturday, it's going to rumble on. Particularly, I think if we beat you, like you're going to lodge an appeal at that point. I mean, there's already talk of Hull
Yeah.
lodging a possible appeal about not having enough time to prep. Arguing that they should just straight away be promoted because they've done their job, and I can hear that argument. I've also seen reports refuting that possible appeal. I mean, my thoughts on it is: did you really need? Like, you should have already been prepping for the possibility of playing us, and you've played us twice already this season. So I don't know if you want to weigh on that, Lewis. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think, to be fair, with the argument you've just said, I would argue that I don't think there's too much legs to that in the basis that I feel like Hull were going to play, the playoff final no matter what, whether they thought it was Southampton or Middlesbrough. So you've got to prepare to play a team. And, if they're saying obviously that they think, oh, now we haven't had enough time because it's been changed and now it's Middlesbrough as the opposition, you could argue that Middlesbrough have had a shock and they've had just as little time. And they've also got the now U-turn where their manager was in a press conference almost in tears, thinking that that was over, and now they've got to kind of ready themselves and get into playing a playoff final. So both points of view have got this shock element of going into this playoff final. I've seen that maybe, obviously, like you said, the saga is going to be almost ended for now temporarily, at least while the playoff finals played. I think the FA are now investigating it. I saw today, so I think the EFL they can't. I saw something where the EFL can't specifically find people, whereas the FA can. So that the FA now are going to look into an investigation about the personnel that were involved, and maybe something more will come to light with specific people that knew about it, how many people knew about it at Southampton, and we might. I've seen also a vague report that the Southampton manager might be getting sacked.
Mm.
So there's a lot of rumbles at the minute about potentially where this could go for Southampton. The main thing for me is I did see someone say a very valid point, which is we shouldn't be necessarily kind of having a full blame on the club Southampton. It was an individual that was found guilty and the personnel that are involved, and they should be held accountable and blamed. However, I feel sorry for the fans who I don't think the AFL have handled it very well in the sense that they've had all these tickets now that have been sold. What's happening with the money? What's happening with the fans that Charlie just said about his train ticket? These Southampton fans would have obviously booked train tickets and had things in place, accommodation. So for the fans themselves, maybe the club need to take a little bit more responsibility in giving them a little bit more information. But we'll see. We'll see what comes of it.
Yeah, 100%. Ultimately, it is the fans who suffer, and it should be the people who organise this held responsible. I don't think it should be the intern either. Obviously, to some degree, he did it, but it's. I think there's evidence that Tom Eckert's kind of the ringleader of this, that their sporting director's kind of involved. It'll all come out in the wash. We'll see how it goes. This is going to rumble on for months and months and months, probably into the start of next season, to be honest. Like I say, particularly if Hull do go and lose that playoff final, which naturally I'm hoping does happen, but we'll get on to that. And we're going to start talking about the kind of Borough side of it, talking about some recent head-to-head games, how we go into that playoff final, and then we'll move on to the Hull element of it. So we'll be back with you shortly. Okay, welcome back to Hoof It, where it's time for us to properly get into the playoff final preview. And we're going to start, as mentioned, with Borough. Now, we're going to start with the recent head-to-heads as well, in fact, because in the last five meetings, it has been pretty dominant for Borough. It's been four wins for Borough, one win for Hull. It's been happy times for us against the Tigers of late. But this season, Bit of a mixed bag. So at the MKM, away from home at Hull, Borough did record a 4-1 win, an absolute mauling in the first half, scoring all four goals, just at their absolute flow-in best. On the flip side, at the Riverside, a 1-0 Hull win, and probably the most typical kind of Borough performance in our poor run this season. 73% possession, 23 shots to 4, lost it 1-0. That worries me for the playoff final because I work with a Hull fan and he's been telling me that you lot are very good at winning games with barely any of the ball. And to be fair, that does wash out in the data in terms of like the average possession numbers because obviously you finish sixth in the league. You are right down near the bottom in terms of average possession, with 45.8% on average across the season, which is quite low. That is quite low on there. Borough by comparison, 59.6%, which is the highest in the league. So I think that tells a bit of a story of how we could see this game go. A possible game plan as well for Hull of just letting us have the ball, sitting back, hitting us on the break. It's what you did against Millwall, and it worked so well. If Balumi's on song, I'm kind of scared, to be honest. But in terms of form for Borough, so we're coming into this off the back of a heartbreaking late defeat to Southampton, which is it's crazy times that we're in the playoff final as it is. Be a really cruel way to lose a playoff semi-final with that cross that went in. And to be honest, before that, it's been a poor second half of the season for Borough anyway, with kind of some fleeting moments of our best selves coming here and there, particularly, I'd say, against the game against Watford, match week 45, beaten 5-1. So I think if that Borough turns up, you know, we'll smash you off the park. We go into it definitely as favourites, I would say, in terms of who is on paper the better team. But I am nervous because I think, obviously, the old cliche, styles make fights. You kind of are kryptonite a little bit. So I'm slightly worried about that. In terms of the playoff history for Borough, we've been in the playoffs four times, which feels mental, by the way, that we've only ever been in the playoffs four times when you think about kind of the club. But I guess, in the early kind of noughties, late 90s, we were a Premier League staple, really. Um, and then since then, the fact that we've only racked up four playoff campaigns, really, to me, it is kind of mental. We've only ever had one success, which, to be fair, Lewis, was against your Chelsea side in 1987-88, which is, just remember where you came from, is what I'm trying to say here. That was over two legs, played at each other's grounds, so not even actually a success at Wembley. More recently, in the playoffs, in 22-23, semi-final loss to Coventry, 1-0 on aggregate. Horrible, horrible day. Gustavo Harmer ruining everything. In 17-18, I was at the home leg. Semi-final loss to Aston Villa, 1-0 on aggregate. So a bit of a pattern forming there. And then, I'd say most famously, the 2014-15 final loss to Norwich, 2-0, where we went in with so much hope and were absolutely dreadful at the start. But we did get promoted the following season. So maybe some hope for us, whatever happens in this playoff final. So that's the Borough preview of it all. I'm going to hand over to Charlie for the whole side of it.
Yeah, so as you did say, the head-to-head record between Middlesbrough and Hull as of, I guess, the last five games does not look too good. One thing I will say, in especially the two games that have happened this season between the two sides, is the star player from our last match against Millwall in the second leg of the playoff semi-final, Mohamed Baloumi, didn't really get to play Middlesbrough. He came on as a sub in the first match for very little time. Looked like he was actually making quite the impact. In the second game, he wasn't there due to injury, so he could be a real difference maker in the final. I think with Hull, as you've said before, they have been a team where they won't have many shots at all and not much possession, but they can still win a game, and I can tell you that's happened multiple times. It's happened when we did play Portsmouth. I believe we only had two shots compared to Pompey, who had about 20. They had far more possession, yet we still managed to win 1-0. One thing I can say about Hull City is, despite us not creating so many chances all the time in certain games, we are clinical. We've shown it. I think it's something that we have one of the lowest XGs in the league, but yet we've converted so many goals from that. And as well as that, I think it really does show defensively and through our goalkeeper Ivo Pandor, I think we've faced almost the most shots or most chances in the Championship, and Pandor's done extremely well to keep most of the chances out. try and keep clean sheets where he can, because it's been a huge pressure on Hull in most games for us to, well, I guess concede, since most teams have had better XG in the match compared to us. So with Hull, looking into our recent form, obviously in the playoff semi-finals, first leg we drew 0-0 with Millwall, beating them 2-0 in the second leg. I think Millwall were definitely a better performance in terms of the first leg. Despite drawing 0-0, we really struggled in the defensive area and in the midfield, but that ultimately improved in the second leg when we changed our setup from a 4 at the back to a 3 or a 5 at the back, and won 2-0 quite, I wouldn't say comfortably, but it looked convincing after we had scored the first goal to break the deadlock. In terms of the recent games before that, we've had a 2-1 win against Norwich, which actually helped us get into the playoffs, as well as a loss to Charlton 2-1 and a 2-2 draw to the relegated Leicester City. So it's a bit of a kind of up and down form for Hull City, but form, to be honest, I feel doesn't really matter when heading into the playoffs and heading into the playoff final, because it just truly shows that anything can happen. And I don't think many people were expecting Hull to go through to the playoff final against Millwall. Not only that, but people were expecting Hull to get into the playoffs, and yet here we are. Looking at our playoff history, it's been rather promising, because we have been in the Championship playoffs 3 times now. This being our 3rd time. The first time was in 2008. We defeated Watford in the playoff semi-finals and then beat Bristol City 1-0, courtesy of a Dean Windass volley, which has to be one of the most iconic goals in a Championship playoff final. 8 years later, we got promoted through the playoffs once again. We defeated Derby County in the semi-finals. And once again in the final, we won 1-0 against Sheffield Wednesday, courtesy of a Mo Diarme screamer. I think that game, it was always going to be a very comfortable victory for Hull. I think the squad that they had, it was more Premier League-esque type. There were so many good quality players. Compare that to our squad now. Really, I mean, that 2015-16 squad beats this year's. But it just shows how this year we've completely defied the odds and expectations, and have shown that maybe our squad has a lot more quality than people do think. So heading into this game, there is a lot of positivity for Hull due to the playoff history and I guess how things have gone as of recently with our performances and results through our most recent games. It's just that thing that hopefully with the short preparation against Middlesbrough, it's not going to make too much of a difference. As I said before, Sergei Yakirovich changed his setup between the first leg and second leg of Millwall. Of course, that usually happens in quite a short period of time, and it paid off. So I'm hoping it's going to pay off when we do face Borough, but we'll just have to wait and see, of course.
Yeah, yeah. I love what you said there. Does worry me. Obviously, Hull's playoff kind of pedigree is well known. Having every time you've gone into it, obviously it's only twice before now you've won it. Um, I don't really fancy going up against that, but we're going to on Saturday. Fingers crossed, going to ruin that record for you. But that does scare me when you look at ours. When we've in the Wembley era, should we say, in the time when it's been a one-legged game at Wembley, we've been in it 3 times and never won it. So that's a very much a flip side of it. Obviously, Lewis, you are the kind of neutral party here. You got any
Yeah.
kind of additional comments to add on to what you've heard so far?
My concern for Middlesbrough is that, obviously, as you know, Ben, in the second leg of the Southampton game, Tommy Conway was injured, and I believe he's still unfit for this Wembley playoff final. So, you've also got obviously your star player in Hayden Hackney, I believe, still an absentee. So, your 2 kind of key players there. For me, when I watched that second half, when I came in from work for the second leg against Southampton, you were devoid of really an attacking outlet when you took Strelic off. And I know that obviously he probably will start the game, but it does concern me a little bit that, you look at the key players. They've got Ollie McBurney as that talisman up front who has been scoring big goals, important goals. Where's that goal scorer for you? And, I think it will be a tight game. Again, with Middlesbrough, the positive could be that, with this whole Spygate scandal, it's not necessarily luck, but there's the fact that they've managed to get now to a playoff final. Could that work in their favour, where the player's mindset and the manager is like, this is a second opportunity now, we have to take it? Could that give them a little bit more lease of life? Or will it work against them in the sense of there was such a heartbreak and such kind of fatigue and tiredness in that end of that Southampton game where they'd left everything on the pitch. Now they've got to go again. Can they kind of get something out of themselves to go again? So it can work in both ways, against and in favour. And yeah, obviously, I think going into it, Hull are probably the team that you would say, based on the fact that they, by definition, won their first kind of was it semi final. I think that they've got the momentum more so going into it. But I think, as you've said, for most of the season, you're the team on paper who are better. So it's going to be a tight game. Something just tells me maybe it's going to be Hull for some reason.
Yeah, that's fair. To be fair, it's interesting you mentioned that kind of emotional whiplash because that's probably the last
Yeah,
thing I wanted to touch on. Because that there is that sense of particularly for Borough, how the hell have we got here? Like feeling so wronged from that semi-final defeat, feeling so like we were cheated out of it. You could see the heartbreak on the players' pitch. You've got Dale Fry crying on the pitch. You've got everyone feeling so deflated. You've got Hellberg nearly in tears in the post-match press conference, just because we felt so wronged. To now be almost given a shot at redemption, I suppose, even though technically we didn't do anything wrong. We've been given that kind of second chance. You wonder if that is going to give us that extra kind of level of determination. On the flip side, should you need something to get you up for a playoff final, right? You should just be up for it anyway. It's the most expensive game in football, and it's just a massive, massive game. On the whole side of it, obviously there is that emotional impact, which you touched on. We've also talked on the fact that I don't think there's much of an impact on this whole kind of delayed thing, other than obviously on the fans. Charlie, have you got any closing thoughts? How do you reckon this game's going to go?
I really think that it is just simply going to be a close game. I think when I heard the fact that we were going to be playing Middlesbrough, I knew it was just one of them. It could literally go either way due to again the shot preparation from both teams. I think I know Hull really have not shown a lot of chances this season against Middlesbrough in the combined two games, but I think we could really try and show something coming to Wembley. It's one of them where, for Hull fans and just for Hull in general, they're really going to hope that they'll win, essentially because technically they're only the only organic winner to get into the playoff final. So they'll be heavily desperate to get something from the game. I mean, I've been saying that regardless if we win or lose, I'm absolutely proud of what our team's done since a lot of us had us going down at the start of this season. The fact how we've got in the first place is incredible, but it's the fact of all the controversy that's happened with the Spygate scandal and what's happened as of recently. It's one of them now where everyone's going to be just prepared to win the game. That's what they want more than anything now. Um, Making a prediction, it was one of them at first where I thought maybe there could be a few goals in it. It'll be like a 2-1 possibly to either team. However, thinking about it now, I have a feeling the same theme is going to continue for Hull in terms of playoff history, and we're going to win 1-0 again, this time to Middlesbrough in the 2026 playoff final. I don't know what you think, Ben or Lewis, but that's simply what I'm going to go with.
Yeah, I mean, my head kind of agrees with you. There's a pattern there. We this season love losing 1-0 in a game where we dominate the ball and have so many shots. See Charlton, see Hull, see Portsmouth. Like we've done it over and over again, and that terrifies me going into this game because that's I can just see that happening. I mean, I think the truth is, you touched on it before. If we had Ivor Panda, if we had Ollie McBurney, I think we would have been automatically promoted, possibly, right up there with Covers as potential title winners. That's kind of the fine margins between us having kind of like, you know, the season that we could have had and the season that we have had. Um, but I do have to back my boys. I have to back the Borough. Obviously, I haven't done it too much this season, but I think it would be disingenuous for me not to going into one of arguably the biggest Borough game in my lifetime. In my living memory, anyway. Obviously, I was, 3 when we had the UEFA Cup final, so I don't really remember that if I'm honest. So yeah, truly, truly massive game. Yeah, my head says 1-0 Hull. my heart's telling me 2-1 Borough after extra time. But the thing is, I think we'll start well. I think we'll have a lot of the ball. It will be interesting to see if we kind of go about it. Sorry, let me have a sip of water. Apologies, viewers and listeners. I'm getting over a cold. Yeah, I'm not dying. Don't worry. Um, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if we kind of give you the ball because I think if we give you the ball, I don't know how much you can create against us. I think you'll be best as it kind of has been all season. I think in transition. But I just don't think we're going to do that. We're a team that dominates the ball, that want to control a game. So I think, yeah, as I said earlier, styles make fights. There's going to be chances either side. I'm going to go 2-1 Borough, but if we don't score early, I think we'll start well. If we don't score first, particularly, it's game over. Like if you not score first, it's done, 100%. So I'm going to go 2-1 Borough, probably after extra time, but just don't give me pens. Just don't give me
No,
pens.
I don't want that
Oh,
either.
God. Well, that is it for this episode of Hoof It for the Championship playoff final preview. Charlie, enjoy Wembley. I'll speak to you on the
Thanks.
flip side, I suppose. Um, I'm terrified.
Well,
Yeah,
you might not speak to him on the flip side because it might be the end of the Hoof It podcast, as you've said.
that is
But
true.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true. Actually, yeah, yeah. We might never speak to you again, viewers. Um, or this podcast might continue with a new host, but it won't be me.
just a Chelsea fan by himself.
Yeah, it might just be
That
me.
won't get a lot of attention.
No, exactly, exactly, exactly. Well, thank you very much for joining us for this special episode. We will possibly catch you next week. All the best and ta